Hello, welcome back to the Veterans Lounge podcast. Miguel Mata, your host. Today, my guest is going to be Ian Braddock. Ian is the gentleman who reached out to me to work in association with his nonprofit organization, the Veterans Nexus Foundation. He knew that I had some experience podcasting, social media, etc., whatnot, and he felt it appropriate to reach out to me and ask if I would partner up with him and try to, one, get the stories of veterans. He like me, takes a large interest in the veterans' story. Where do people come from? What made them want to join the military? What kind of challenges did they face as they exited the military? What are they doing now? He's interested in all that stuff as well. So knowing that we had that in common, he reached out to me and asked if I would if I would partner up with his organization and do my part in getting the veterans' story out there, while simultaneously getting the word out that his organization exists, whose mission it is to help veterans, especially when it comes to transitions. So I felt it only appropriate to get Ian on the podcast early so we could hear his story, learn about what got him into the military, why did he join the military, what was his transition like, and also, of course, to give us a little bit of background behind the Veterans Nexus Foundation. I would like to put this small little disclaimer: as this podcast gets going, the quality of the product is going to be a little on the low side, but it's going to improve. I promise, it's going to improve. But with that being said, and without further ado, here's Ian Braddock. All right, how's it going? Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Veterans Lounge podcast. Miguel Mata, your host, and I am here with my guest, Ian Braddock. Say hello, Ian.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Ian Braddock is a prior Marine. Well, from what I understand, this is something that my brother told me. Once a Marine, always a Marine, right?
That's how it works.
Once a Marine, always a Marine. But Ian Braddock is a Marine Corps veteran, and I thank you very much, Ian, for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Miguel.
Well, I'll tell you what, I am eager to get started to talk to you because you are the one that reached out to me to try to partner up with you and your group, the Veterans Nexus Foundation. And I'm eager to learn and I'm eager to share what the Veterans Nexus Foundation is about and its mission and that sort of stuff. I'm always curious and interested to learn the steps that led to your joining the service. When did you serve, by the way?
From 2014 to 2018.
So from whatever steps got you to join the service in 2014, I'm curious to hear about that. So would you mind sharing that with us? What got you to join the service? Why'd you join the Marines?
That's not a problem. So I was actually going to join the Army, and I went to the recruiter's office, and the Army recruiter wasn't there. So this Marine Corps recruiter, I don't remember the guy's name. He's long gone, but he ran over there and he was like, "What are you gonna do that for? Why would you want to do that?" And before you know it, I'm sitting in the Marine Corps recruiter's office, and we're talking. And at the time, it didn't really matter to me which branch I wasn't really concerned about that. But I just kind of started to gravitate away from joining the Army to joining the Marine Corps. I'm glad I did. I would do it again. It was probably one of the best decisions I ever made for myself. I definitely agree with that. But I was tired of not doing anything that really mattered. I was tired of, not really having anything other than, I had more than the clothes on my back. I was okay, but I was tired of not having, I guess, more.
How old were you?
I was 20.
So you were already out of high school a few years, and you were just ready to take that next step, that next step of independence, maybe?
Yeah, that's basically it. I was, like I said, I just really wanted more than what I had. And the only way to get more than what you have is, you gotta step up to the plate. You gotta take that challenge. You have to do it for yourself. Nobody's gonna do it for you.
Interesting. I'm listening to you talk, and you're saying, when I hear you say more than what you have, I'm curious, you wanted more than what you had, and you gravitated towards the military. What was it about the military that attracted you to give you whatever that more was?
So I think the biggest thing for me was it kind of gave me a direction to go in. After high school, I didn't go to college or a trade school, anything like that. So I was just kind of hanging out in the wind. The military really gave me it gave me a sense of purpose, but it also really gave me a direction to go down and somewhere to funnel that energy and the time and the dedication to actually doing something that was worth doing, instead of just bagging groceries at a grocery store.
Is that what you were doing?
It was, yeah. I was a cashier at Aldi's.
Where are you from originally?
South Carolina.
You're from South Carolina?
Yeah.
All right. South Carolina, 20 years old. Said I gotta get out of here, Jack.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you chose the Marine Corps. What did you do in the Marines?
So in the Marine Corps, I was a bulk fuel specialist. So kind of two different things I did. I tested the fuel to make sure that it was good, that it was acceptable to go into aircraft. The other thing I did was when I was at Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point, I actually fueled the airplanes out on the flight line. So it's two very different worlds, I guess you could say. One is more quality control. One is actually doing the work. When I was in Japan, I was part of the engineer support battalion that was out there. We went to South Korea, and we did a combined mission with the Rock Marines and some other forces. And that was doing the ground side type work, where you have the fuel bladders on the ground. But yeah, I was a bulk fuel specialist.
In Japan, were you in Okinawa?
I was, yes. Good old Camp Hansen.
Yeah. I did a few years in Okinawa myself.
Back down in Kadena?
Yeah, back in Kadena, yeah. I always got, there were several times, I don't know if you've ever been on Kadena, but there were several times when I was driving from one of the shopettes or whatever, right? And the Marine dorms were somewhere around there. I can't remember exactly, but I would always, see young guys walking, middle of the night type stuff. And I'd know exactly who they were and where they were going. I'd pull over, as like, Marine Corps? He said, yes, sir. You need a ride to the dorms? He said, please. He said, please, sir. So I said, okay. Because the Marines weren't allowed to drive. I think it was like E4 and under. You weren't allowed to drive or something like that. So those guys are always hoofing it.
For a lot of the Marines that were out there, that was basically still the reality. Was if you were married, it was different, because if your family's out there, obviously they're out there, and if you have a kid and things like that, you have transportation, you have a vehicle. But most, if you live in the barracks, 9 times out of 10, you're not gonna have a vehicle.
Right.
Especially if you're like an E3 or below, if you're like a Lance Corporal, the last thing that they probably want is you driving around a foreign country in a sports car.
Tell you what, the other thing that I thought was, being an Air Force guy, we're lax about we're not entirely lax about our grooming standards, but we are definitely not cranked up to 11 like the Marines are about their grooming standards. I remember I had to go to, I can't remember what base it was. There was a base up there. It's been so long since Fatima, does that sound right? Anyway, it was the base that had the theater on there, and they had a big PX up there. But this young kid was coming out of the PX, and he had a little scruff on his face, right? And this, I guess, Marine NCO, they were in civilian clothes, right? Air Force guys in civilian clothes, it's like whatever, right? But Marines don't mess around, boy. That dude got lit up. Oh, some NCO that saw him just giving him the business about grooming standards. Just like, yeah, gum, dude. Okay, these guys don't mess around.
That's the thing, man. You you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. I think it's the best way to put that. I mean, you walk out of your barracks room door and you know that you're wrong and you know what is about to happen and you do it anyways. So it's like, okay, well, you know, you decide to play, you know, play a stupid game. So, you know, kind of you reap what you sow, I guess.
So it's 2000. You joined in 2014. You did one enlistment. You got out in 2018.
Yep.
What made you decide to get out?
So I really just wanted to do something different. I enjoyed my time in, but at the same time, I really felt that it was time to do something different. About halfway through my enlistment, I knew I wanted to go back to school. You know, because that's how you, I don't know, I guess the best way to say it is get ahead. You know, you go to school, you get an education, or you go to trade school, or you learn a skill, or you know, something.
Right. Yeah.
So I knew I really wanted to do that, and I also knew that you can go to school while you're in. That is possible, but it's also very difficult to do. And I already knew at the time that I had plans to go to on to like get a PhD or get a JD from a law school. So I knew I needed really good grades, and I really just wasn't willing to roll the dice on staying in and getting grades that weren't going to get me into a good law school.
So you're saying halfway through your enlistment, you made the decision that you wanted to be a lawyer?
Not so much definitely be a lawyer. I knew I wanted to do something, working with people, working with the public.
Okay.
But I didn't know definitely that I wanted to be a lawyer.
Okay. Well, as I learned from somebody else who explained it to me, law school is a lot more than just being a lawyer. You're not obligated. Like for those of us, I guess, lay people who don't know any better, you believe that law school heads to the courtroom always, but that's not necessarily the case every time. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna say it is. It's a lot more than that. I mean, it's yes. You have proceedings in the courtroom, but you also have people. If you're an attorney and you don't have good people skills, I mean, or if you're in any type of job really, or any type of leader position, if you don't have those good communication skills or anything like that, I mean, you're not going to be very good at your job, and people are not going to want to go to you.
So just that, so I make sure that I understand you correctly. Right around halfway through your enlistment, you realize you want to go back to school, and then before you get out, you realize you want to go into law school. Is that how?
So about halfway through my enlistment, I knew I wanted to go back to school. I knew that I definitely wanted to continue my education. And then really towards the end of my enlistment, I had traveled a lot by then. And I'd always been really interested in politics and the news and things like that. And the more I researched and the more that I traveled, the more I really got interested in international law and how different countries interact and treaties and things like that. Because, for better or for worse, that's kind of what makes the world turn is all these different countries talking. And really towards the end of my enlistment, I decided I wanted to go to law school.
Awesome. Which I guess, kind of right around that same time is where you and I actually meet, because we met right here in Charleston, South Carolina, on the campus of the College of Charleston. We were both on our own respective journeys, higher education journeys. And you were at that point already made the decision to go to law school. Now, me, I was following the education track, which 4 years, graduate, get into work. You, on the other hand, what is it that because you graduated at the same time I did. What degree did you graduate with, and like how does that fall into your legal journey?
Yeah, so I graduated with a BA in political science and international studies, and I did it that way intentionally because I wanted to cast a wide net, not just so I had a good understanding of politics in the United States, but so I had a really good understanding of the different layers of the world, how the different countries are and things like that, which I really felt like the degree from the College of Charleston that I got, I really felt like it did a good job of that. And that kind of plays into, me going to law school, because of the way that a degree in political science and international studies teaches you how to think. It teaches you kind of, it lays the groundwork. It teaches you how to write. It teaches you how to read a certain way and look for details and things like that. Because you can sit there all day and you can read a piece of paper, but if you can't pick out the tiny little details, it's kind of not a worthless piece of paper, but it could be a lot more useful than it is.
So let me ask you this. One of the reasons why I started this podcast was because one of the observations that I made while we were on campus was that a lot of people seem to have a lot of difficulty, experience a lot of challenges. They really had a hard time making their transition from military to civilian life. Like, it was hard for a lot of guys and gals. What was your experience like? Did you find it difficult or challenging, or did you feel prepared? I guess the best way I can put it like this: the first 2 weeks, I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. This is great. I can do whatever I want. The initial, happiness of not having to stand watch and not having to check in with people or not having to worry about all these other, things happening that I'm sure we can both think of. And at first it was great, but the more that time went on, the days and the weeks and the months they passed, it got rough. It did. I wish I could say that it was super easy and it was a breeze, and before you knew it, this here I am. But it was rough for a while. I always tell people it's like taking a fish out of water, because you're literally, you're taking somebody who, for lack of a better term, how they think has been reconstructed, how they act has been reconstructed, and they're put into this environment where they know who they are, they know their job, they know who they report to, they know everything that they are supposed to know. Mm-hmm. Just like a fish does. And if you put a fish in a pond, it knows how to swim, it knows how to hunt for food and all that kind of stuff. If you put your hand in there and you grab that fish and you take it out of the water, it's going to flop around. That's kind of what I think it was like. It's just kind of trying to figure out, what the heck to do. Can you elaborate on any specific challenges that you experienced?
Yeah. So I think one of the big ones was, the Marine Corps, we definitely have the military in general, but the Marine Corps, we definitely have an appetite for, for drinking. I think that not so much of an issue, but it was definitely a challenge, to kind of rein that in, because, you're used to one lifestyle, where it's, not socially acceptable, but socially acceptable. And it's considered the societal norm, if you will.
Right.
As opposed to, the people you work with are not going to go and crush a 30 rack of beer after work with you. That's most people.
When you get out.
Right. It's just not going to happen.
I get it. Yeah. I think I understand, you're in your previous setting, right? That would have been acceptable because it was just kind of part of the construct, right? It's just how you got through. It's not necessarily how you got through your day. I said how you got through your day as if you needed it to do it, but it was just something that you did and it was part of your routine. And I think one of my biggest challenges was and you still kind of face is that as a military member, you're a problem solver, and you're an immediate problem solver. And as an immediate problem solver, you're a direct talker, a direct communicator. You just say things and you speak at people instead of to them a lot of times, right? Especially when you talk about solving problems specifically, because that's how we work in a team where there's supposed to be team members and everybody's got a role to play. If you're not going to play your role, then you need to move because you slow the rest of us down, right? So it's that thinking that doesn't necessarily apply, and that's that communication style that doesn't necessarily translate And that's probably one of my biggest adjustments to make, which it doesn't take long to figure out, but you end up figuring it out. And for some people, especially like I said, the people that we came across when we were, in school, and I seem to notice that it was a lot of younger people, the guys that did 4 to 8 years and less, and then got out, and they're the ones that seem to have the most difficulty. Anyway, they have the problem solving skills, but they just don't necessarily have the people skills.
I really think it's I think it depends on, it kind of goes back to what you said about the people who did a certain amount of time and they got out, or they did a certain amount of time and stayed in. I think part of it is, your leadership develops over time. And once you're a platoon sergeant, you have to communicate with people. You have to communicate with higher and lower. And I think a lot of times, from my experience, at least, the people who have been at that level of leadership and above, I feel like maybe they got out with a little bit of an advantage because they're used to communicating on that level.
Agreed.
As opposed to the Lance Corporal who's just told to go and paint rocks.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Do whatever it may be. So I mean that could definitely be I guess a catalyst for that.
Right. Being someone who's aware that the veteran community needs, is in need of assistance, several different types of assistance. You started a nonprofit organization called Veterans Nexus. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What inspired that? Where'd that idea come from? All that stuff?
Sure. So I had the idea probably about 2 years ago. I want to say I had been at the College of Charleston for about a year. I went into a bookstore, the college bookstore actually, with a friend of mine, and she was just getting her textbooks, and she had her son with her, and she was taking all these very heavy like science classes, and the textbooks were super expensive, and the GI Bill, it only gives you $500 a semester. Well, by the time we walked out of the store, I mean, she must have spent over $1,000 on textbooks. And, it's like, she just spent $1,000 on textbooks. She's got her son with her. And I mean, I know she was a single mom at the time. So it's like, something about that just doesn't seem right. The individual in question, she gave, I want to say it was like 8 years of her life to the Marine Corps, and to turn around and, I guess, I don't want to say take something from her son, but, put money somewhere else where it could have been spent a lot better. If that makes sense. So that's kind of when things started to brew, I guess, in my mind, that, things needed to change, that we needed to do something. And then it kind of molded itself over time, I guess, is like we were in, we were at school and we would talk to other veterans and things like that. And I would just kind of sit there and listen to the issues they were having. And it became clear that there were a few things that needed to change. After that, kind of like, I guess, the last piece that kind of pushed me over the edge, I did the Vantage Point Foundation leadership course. I want to say it was last September or October. Anyways, it was a few months before I filed the paperwork for the foundation. But I was listening. We had a guest general come and talk. And I was listening to what he was saying as well. And I felt like he had noticed a lot of the same problems, that I was also noticing. And kind of going back to what you had said about being problem solvers, I've never really found it that it helped anybody just to, sit there and twiddle my thumbs and, be like, oh, well, we have these problems. I mean, well, yes, we see them, but, let's do something about it. So it's kind of when I decided to file the paperwork, and I started putting pen to paper and just kind of started floating the idea around of seeing what people thought and things like that. And before you know it, I mean, we had paperwork was filed, and everything that was once, I guess, a dream, if you will, was reality. And one thing that I also think is very important is, I met with Mark Holyfield. He's the executive director of Vantage Point. and we were talking. I was just kind of floating some ideas by him when we had lunch. And one of the things that Mark said to me that really flipped the switch, if you will, was, there's a lot of organizations out there and they do a lot of good work. But, I think a lot of times what happens is there's a big focus on the negative. There's a big focus on all the negative things that happen. And that's not what I wanted the organization to be about. I wanted the organization to be about, the good things that people are doing, and things like that, so that, you're not focusing on that negative energy. Because, if you focus on the negative energy, it doesn't help anybody. So that was a really good conversation between me and Mark, that really kind of hit the nail on the head for me.
When you say negative, focus on the negative, are you talking like the PTSD and the depression, anxiety, and that sort of stuff, or are you talking about something else?
So more of what I'm talking about is a lot of that, yes. But I guess what I'm saying is, addressing, left of bang, if you will. So like, you have like all these issues, sure, but if you can get on the left side of it before it happens, if you can, help mentor and guide these people before, they're in this hole too deep, I think the time and energy is better spent there, so they never get to those dark places.
That makes perfect sense, because I can't speak for everyone, but it can be discouraging, right? And it can be discouraging to the point, especially if you've set a goal for yourself, you have this ambition, and if it's a college, if it's to go to school, right? But you're going to come up short a few $100s because you can't afford the textbooks. It's easy to say, well, I'll just try next semester, or I'll take the semester off, or something like that, because you hear that a lot. I'll just take the semester off, I'll save some money, blah, blah, blah. Well, how often does that happen? How often do people come back?
Right.
Yeah, they don't. A lot of times they don't. And some of those people who slip away, they get stuck in a rut doing something they hate, right? They do not enjoy. And so that makes perfect sense. Get ahead of it, right? You said to the left of it, but get ahead of the problem, which is to offer support before it becomes a problem. Right. Keep their forward momentum going, and keep the pilot lit. That is a great idea. I like that way of thinking, right? Don't slow the momentum, because once you stop the momentum, so hard to get back going, especially when you talk about higher education. So many people have walked away saying they're going to come back, and they never come back, right? So many people say they got this goal going, whatever, just in general, right? We seek out these goals. We put the pause on it, but we never jump back on it. And it's like, man, shouldn't have stopped in the first place. So yeah, good for you, man. I like that way of thinking. What kind of, before we wrap up here, because we're kind of going, we're getting towards the end of our time, just what kind of help does the Veterans Nexus Foundation offer? What kind of assistance?
So it's really a three-prong approach, if you will. We have one side of the house which deals with basically buying textbooks for veterans, up to $500. So essentially what we do is, we can double what that veteran is getting, per semester. So instead of just having the $500, they'll have $1,000, or, basically whatever it will be for them to be able to get their textbooks and not be paying out of pocket. Because that's just one thing that they definitely shouldn't be doing, is, paying out of pocket. And I mean, most people don't know this, but if memory serves me correctly, the amount for textbooks has skyrocketed, while the amount that the GI Bill supports, the $1,000 a year, $500 a semester, it hasn't increased at all. So it's still the same amount. And there's also the fact that, during the summer, there is no textbook stipend at all. So you're completely on your own for that. So you have the textbook grants. You also have we're currently working on a mentorship program, and it's really going to be focused on the STEM fields. It's kind of, the fields that we see in the next, 5, 10, 20 years that are going to be very important. So you're talking about biotech companies, different companies that are, doing software and space exploration, things like that. So we really want to help, find those veterans that they're interested in that field, in those fields, and help pair them with somebody that's already doing that type of work, that has a network that can also help support that veteran. So, when they graduate, they have a network already. They're not having to start from scratch. And hopefully that leads the goal anyway is they can use that network to help land a better job, a better salary, a better life for them and their family. So that's the mentorship piece. The final component we have, it's really an employment connection piece. And the reason that we have that is because one of the things that a lot of people had told me was they're like, I don't know how to write a good resume. I don't know what to put on the resume. I don't know X, Y, and Z about, putting pen to paper and actually putting my information in a resume. So what we did was we sat down and we created a veterans toolbox. And within the toolbox, what you have is different resume templates where it's, I hesitate to use the term plug and play, but that's kind of what it is. It's different formats depending on, what the employer is looking for. They're not always going to want a 2-page resume. They might want 1 page. But we have a template on there that's for that. And along with the toolbox, the director of the Employment Connections, Kyle McKibben, he's currently reaching out to different businesses on both the local, state, and national level to try to get them involved so that we can advertise some of these job openings they have. Because, if you scroll through LinkedIn or, really any social media site that these companies are on, whether it be Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, they're looking for veterans. They want to hire veterans, and it's all over the place. But again, if the veteran doesn't see it, then they're not going to know it exists. If they don't know it exists, they can't apply. And there's a lot of variables that go into that, like the different algorithms that these tech companies use. So there is that. But really, that's kind of the meat and potatoes of what we do.
That's really, that's great. That's great. I wish you the best of luck. And I tell you what, proud to know you, proud to call you a friend. I really wish you the best of luck. Oh, by the way, you're not done with your own higher education journey. Where are you at right now? Because that looks like a hotel.
So right now I'm actually up in Cleveland, Ohio. I was accepted into Case Western Reserve University School of Law. So that's where I'm going to spend the next 3 years of my life.
Awesome, dude. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Well, Ian, thanks for joining me on the Veterans Lounge podcast. I really enjoyed hearing your story. Best of luck to you with your nonprofit, Veterans Nexus Foundation, and with your schooling, with law school. Wish you the very best of luck. VeteransNexus.org is the website if you're looking for more information on Ian Braddock's nonprofit. And you may or may not have noticed, but that is also the website that this podcast is located at. And that's because Ian reached out to me and encouraged me to start this podcast in association with his group. So that's what we're doing. We're partnering up to try to get the word out and help veterans out with their transitions. All right, friends, this has been the Veterans Lounge podcast. I'd like to say thanks, a big thanks to Ian Braddock for coming on and being a guest on the podcast. I tell you what, he like all veterans, has an interesting story. To hear that he was going to join the Army, right? How many times have we heard that story? What a service member was going to join one branch of the service and then they get scooped up by another branch of service, and Ian was just one of those people, right? Was going to join the Army, ends up joining the Marine Corps. Has something inside him that tells him that he needs to do something bigger, right? Decides he's going to get a higher education and decides he's going to be a lawyer. Wow. And then, of course, his starting the Veterans Nexus Foundation to help veterans, military veterans, with their transitions and making connections to higher education, helping them with higher education, getting to the left of, in his words, right, getting to the left of any problems that might arise which could discourage them from reaching their goals and then making employment connections. How fantastic is that? Thanks for joining me. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you're listening to the podcast version, the audio version, you can watch the video. There's a video associated with this, and it's available on YouTube. Just look up Veterans Lounge Podcast. You'll be able to find it there. If you're watching on YouTube and you prefer to listen to it in podcast form, well, the podcast audio version is available on Spotify. It's available on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Castbox. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, go to veteransnexus.org/podcast. There's a form there that you can fill out. We can make an appointment, we can get together, and we can try to make arrangements so that way we can record a podcast together. If you liked, one more thing, if you liked the video, if you like what you're listening and like what you're hearing, please like and subscribe, comment, provide some feedback, okay? You guys take care. God bless.